Um, Hi. We've been speaking about OpenGov for a while now, and I think one of the most exciting things about Polkadot and what's happening in this ecosystem is OpenGov, right? The governance is one of the most primary things that people look into Polkadot for, apart from the amazing tech that we have here, right? We have been using a system named Gov1, Governance 1, for a very long period of time, I think from the time Polkadot launched. And now we have OpenGov. OpenGov went live on Polkadot 2 weeks ago, and we've had 30 plus proposals, and it's been live on Kusama for a very long time. But why should you care? Why does OpenGov really matter? Let's get into that. So hi, I am Jaski. I am the CEO and co-founder for House of Commons. It's a brand. It's a brand encompassing all our products, which is Polkassembly. I believe everybody in the Polkadot ecosystem is already familiar with Polkassembly, have either used it some point in their life. And then we have Polkasafe and Townhall. Polkasafe is a multi-sig tool, and Townhall is an off-chain governance platform. We'll go into all of that together to see how all these tools essentially build the House of Commons to make sure that governance really is as effective as it should be on Polkadot and in general in Web3. Right. So why now? The first question with OpenGov or governance in general becomes why. Right. We've been having ecosystems. We've been arranged as humans into different categories. Like we started evolving from like tribes, right, where people used to settle into small establishments for specific purposes. Then we moved to a model where we had kingdoms, right, run by kings. It was not democratic at all. I mean, decisions were taken, people were killed. So many different things happened, but over a period of time and thousands of years, we've evolved into a governance structure that's way more democratic, has its own issues. I think issues are something that all of us face on a very day-to-day basis, and maybe we can talk about today as well on how Web3 based governance, and especially OpenGov, takes care of a lot of issues that exist in the real world around governance as well, right? And we know the problems that exist with monopolies. I mean, today, all platforms, everything is controlled by big companies, big giants, and that's why one of the biggest promises of Web3 has been governance, and OpenGov just makes it even better. So, why Web3 governance, right? We've had people coordinating over decision making for a long period of time, be it idea sharing, be it wanting to decide. Like if you guys remember the time when Polkadot changed its logo, it was a common consensus, right? There were 3-4 designs that were put out and people voted on which one they wanted to be a final design. Maybe could have been better with people actually proposing more and more logos in a democratic way, but at least there was some democracy. Right, but today when we take decisions, even in organizations or anywhere else, decision making is highly centralized. Every decision, especially with the platforms that you use, are controlled by the companies that are running them. But when it comes to Web3 and especially Polkadot, this strong coordination, right? People get together to take decisions on things that really matter to them, or they just vote nay on those. So these semi-formal, formal relationships that form in Web3 with the power of blockchain technology is something that OpenGov lives to create an economic incentive around blockchains. I mean, we speak about blockchains as new economies, each blockchain being a country of its own. And what's a country without a good democratic governance process, right? It's a chaos. And we've seen that in all ecosystems, be it applications like Lido, Uniswap, or chains like Solana, Polygon, any of these chains which are highly centralized. They claim to be decentralized, but everybody knows how centralized they run, and that creates a lot of problems. I mean, today, whatever happens on those chains, nobody gets to decide what's happening. It's a small group set of people that probably are coordinating over WhatsApp or Telegram, and we've seen that with FTX as well, right? Sending money to Alameda, 5 billion was a Slack emoji decision taken from like a message that was put up by somebody in Slack, right? So Web3 governance and especially on-chain treasuries are meant to solve for these problems on how everything evolved with blockchain, which is essentially an economy that people are living and thriving on, decide every moment that happens there. There are challenges. I mean, just like what we have in governance today, there are huge challenges that come with it. Web3, the voter participation is extremely low, and there are reasons for it. You don't want to vote on everything, right? But the expectation in Web3 today is for each person to come and vote on everything. That's a problem. There's low voter participation. There is no information practically available when you're taking a decision, right? There is a proposal that's often so technical, filled with so much data that you have no context of what you're voting. It's often followed by people going and voting for wherever the proposal is. If it's passing, people will be like, hey, everybody believes it's right, so maybe we're gonna vote that it's right and let's pass it. Decision making centralized. Polkadot always had a comparatively decentralized decision-making process, but with Gov1, it was still to the council members to finally often vote on proposals and make sure which one gets enacted and who gets the money, right? Incentives. There's no incentive for you to vote. I mean, today I have a lot of tokens. Why do I come to a governance portal every day and go through proposals, spend hours and hours reviewing proposals, and then finally make a call? Lock my tokens as well, right? It takes a lot to do all of this, and why do you want to do it? You don't probably. And there is no accountability. I mean, till date, on Polkassembly, we've processed proposals cumulatively worth more than $300 million worth. Do we see the impact of those proposals or the amount spent to date? Probably not, right? So there's no accountability on how these funds are being used. How is governance being effectively managed once things move away from on-chain governance, right? So we had Gov1. Gov1 was pretty amazing. We had voting timetables, we had emergency proposals, there was binary voting, there was a council, there was a tech committee, there was public. One of the biggest problems was one referenda at a time. So there was a huge proposal queue always on Polkadot and Kusama, and only the top proposal in the referenda list was picked up to become like a referenda where council members would finally vote on, and that created a huge problem. I mean, getting to the final voting stage, I think when OpenGov went live on Polkadot, there were 50 proposals waiting on Gov1 to get voted that were all discarded. Right, so that was a huge problem. We had adaptive quorum biasing, and it made sure that things run fine. And Polkassembly played a huge role in doing all of this. So we empowered 300 million worth plus proposals. There have been a lot of discussions and motions. There's 60K plus active users in the ecosystem who've been using the platform's open source. So people have been integrating the governance API into wallets like Nova, platforms like Subsquare who index data from us to show all this data. And even Decoded was funded via a proposal on Polkassembly, but this was Gov1. OpenGov. Main changes that happen with OpenGov is council has been completely dissolved. It brings in a lot of value in the fact that today now there is no liability on council members for final decision making, and the decision making power is finally given back to the people. Every proposal is voted by the people for whatever they want to vote on, and they can disagree, and we've seen that happen all across. So dissolving the council was a huge step. We've established a fellowship and a collective model which will, over a period of time, bring significantly more value to the ecosystem, because you need dedicated actors. And we've seen this in real world, right? You vote someone to power, and then it is their responsibility to make sure that decisions are taken for what they should be. There's parliament across every country, right? And they decide what needs to be done and what not. You don't want to know everything, or you don't have the power to take decisions. That's going to happen with fellowship a lot and collectives, that there will be group of people who will dedicate themselves to working for organizations, for Polkadot, for other parachains, focused on just making sure that the direction of the parachain is set right. And it becomes a responsibility of us, the community members, the token holders, and the foundation of that, be it Polkadot or any other parachain, to make sure that the incentives of these people are overall aligned. And that's what's happening with fellowship. There's a salary model, there's everything integrated, right? So bringing OpenGov to life. What happens with OpenGov? There's a lot of interesting things, and I think there is a technical talk tomorrow as well from Web3 Foundation, where we talk about the fine details of how OpenGov works, how proposals move across different tracks, right? There are so many security measures. There's 16 different tracks meant for root, treasury, so many other things. This is one of the popular tracks, which is medium spender. You see a proposal on Polkassembly, you have audits. So these are community audits that make sure that, people get together to form an opinion on a proposal and say, hey, we feel this about the proposal, and it's available to everyone who comes to vote. So the entire discussion of what people are feeling is available in comments, and then you have audits available, and there's clear transparency of what's happening. So if you see, right, you can clearly see how many people have voted for it. You can see that in the history where the proposal is at its confirmation phase. There's decision period ongoing. Once it goes through that, there's a confirmation period. So we intended to build a platform that abstracts away all the technical challenges of using governance and introduce a lot of additional features that focus on one thing: make governance more accountable, more transparent, and more efficient. Right? Threshold curves. This is something very interesting about Polkadot's OpenGov, which you can track across every proposal that you go to. Right? So you see that curve right there. It just keeps moving every single time. There's so many ups and downs. That shows how the community has been looking at your proposal. Probably the proposal started with 100% people in favor of you. Somebody came, voted nay, and now it's down to 80%. And this curve keeps fluctuating till the proposal passes. Right? So this shows how community is essentially involved in the final approval of the proposal. You'll often see proposals that go into like the final phase, which is like the approval period, where you will see that the community members are actively voting against the proposal to make sure it doesn't pass. And you'll see cycles of these threshold curves there in those proposals. So whenever you see a proposal roaming around 49-51%, do check out the threshold curves. But threshold curves essentially make sure to show you the value of community, gathering a community around you, having a voice in the ecosystem, right? You can't build in silos anymore. Earlier, people used to build something, probably go to some core council members and be like, hey, we've put out a proposal, why don't you vote for us and help us out? Doesn't apply anymore. You need the entire community to come and support for you, and that comes when they use their product. I mean, if you don't use a product, you're not going to support it. So OpenGov will really change how adoption really works, where teams will be forced to go out to people and talk about what they've built. Delegation. Delegation is one of the most powerful tool that's provided by Web3 governance to us. Right? We delegate our voting power when we vote somebody to power in the real world. Happens similarly in Web3. EVM ecosystems don't do it efficiently at all. We've always had delegation in Polkadot, right? With OpenGov, now we have track level delegation. So essentially saying that, hey, maybe he is an expert with root track, right? Which is focused on very core infrastructural things that will bring significant changes to the protocol and how it runs. Somebody else, maybe she is focused on something that's more about, medium tips, that people asking for small money for doing some other things related to the ecosystem. So everybody can be delegated for a specific track. So people can stand up and say that, hey, I've had an active voice in the ecosystem. I understand how treasury works. This is my background. This is my delegate profile. I feel you should delegate your voting power to me for these tracks. You don't need to do for anything else, because I don't know how to vote on technical proposals, right? So I don't want to be delegated for them. And making delegation easy was one of our biggest problems that we wanted to solve. That today when you go on Polkassembly, the delegation dashboard, you can see each and every delegate's detailed profile. You can delegate to them based on the track that you choose, that you feel they have expertise on, and it's completely agile. Today when you vote somebody to power in real world, you have to wait often 5 years to maybe get them out, and you have no idea what they're doing. With blockchain, Polkassembly, and OpenGov, what happens is you know every decision that they voted on. So you can see what did they comment on, what did they vote on. You can ask questions. So we'll be introducing chat where you can ask questions to your delegate saying, hey, you voted nay for a proposal, can you tell us why? So this brings a lot of flexibility that if you don't align with somebody as a delegate, you can immediately undelegate your voting power. That's the beauty of agile delegation. You undelegate your voting power. If you feel anyone else is worth it, give it to them. If you feel they are not, just take it back. Right. So you have track-based delegation. You have delegate profiles that have information on what their voting power is, how many proposals they've voted, how much delegation they've already received, and you can just do it with super easy. Like you can select whatever tracks you want, and then you can delegate them all together. Then there is community sentiment, which again we feel is very important. When you drop in a comment, you wanna know, like, comments are often too technical and people don't want to read. So I just want to know, hey, if 5 people have commented, what's the overall sentiment of people who are commenting on the proposals? Identity, I think I spoke about it yesterday as well, that anybody making a proposal should set their on-chain identity, and if they've not, people should not vote for them, especially when it comes to treasury funding, because you really want to know where the money is going and how is it being used. Right, so on-chain identity has become a very important factor, and we're trying to simplify that at Polkassembly. Creating a proposal today is still very complicated with OpenGov as well. You need to go to polka.js, you need to do a lot of different things. We thought it's not meant to be. We just created a very simple template for you. You come here, you say what you're creating, you just put in your funding amount, we tell you the track. So abstracting away all the technical information that comes with OpenGov and providing you a very simple interface to create a proposal. And searching, like today's search is just a very big problem in Web3 in general. So you want to know what has happened, what are proposals ongoing, maybe if Polkassembly has created a proposal, what other proposals have they created, and so on. So search becomes a very important feature that was needed, that we have recently added. And I'll come to how all of these are very important for OpenGov. Notifications, like you can select different tracks. So you look at Gov1, you can select that, hey, for referendas, I want notification when a new referenda is selected. So detail to that level essentially allows you to specify your particular interest, get notified for it, and participate. So this is about giving more power back to the people, especially in OpenGov, where you may not want to do everything related to governance, but there are specific interests that you care about. Notifications take care of that. And coming to the main point, accountability, right? I spoke initially as well about accountability and why it's important. Today, most teams that take treasury funding are not accountable for anything. They do not share any audit report with the community, anything that's happening, and especially with OpenGov, when the power is finally back to the people. You want to see, hey, they've taken $1 million in past. What are they doing with it? What have they done with it till date? Right? That's where all these important things come, where we are introducing milestone reports, proposal audits. You already saw that there are community-driven proposal audits on proposal. We're introducing a reputation system that will provide reputation to each and every single voter and proposer based on their activity in the ecosystem. So it will be more like a trust score for you to say, hey, we trust this person and their choice. Right, and then there is clear timeline and spend analysis saying that, hey, if you're taking money from the treasury for a quarter, here's your timeline, here's the timer. Within a quarter, come back, submit a report to the community saying that, hey, this is our profile, go, here are the team members, this is how we've utilized and spent all the money. So making sure that there is a huge accountability layer built on top of OpenGov will make OpenGov extremely more efficient in what it's supposed to achieve. Right. Part of increasing transparency is multi-sigs. So essentially saying that, hey, most people when they take treasury funding, funds go to a multi-sig wallet because that's the most secure way to manage your accounts, right? How are you using that money? Firstly, as an internal accountability tool, you want to know. So when you create a multi-sig transaction, you want to know people to know that, hey, this is what the transaction was created for. And imagine if you could integrate this into governance. So saying that, hey, if Subsocial has created a treasury proposal, they took the money into a multi-sig wallet, the next time they come, you have track of every single transaction that's went out of their multi-sig wallet with the context that they're provided. It's upon them to do it. But you as a community can put questions saying that, hey, you haven't done this. Why do we not know how did you use these dots? we want to know, only then we can support you in the future. So this is our an additional focus on making sure that multisigs are integrated deeply into governance. We'll be integrating wallets as well to provide more and more increased transparency around spending of the assets that these teams are doing. And yeah, this is part of that. So you can categorize each transaction into various stuff. You can add whatever description you want, making it extremely more transparent. So teams are doing expense reimbursement. You have all this detail available in governance with you. And then time's up, but probably the fact that not every decision can be an on-chain decision. There are 16 different tracks meant for various proposals. But whoever listened to even Gavin's talk today, he spoke about a lot of things where you want community to come and vote, but these are probably not on-chain decisions. This is not a code change, this is not spending from the treasury, but this is much more about the ecosystem and the value that we live in, right? So that's where Townhall, our off-chain governance platform, comes in, where you come here, create different voting strategies, create different rooms. Like imagine if Kilt and Frequency were to collaborate on something. They could co-create a room together with strategies with both of their tokens, where people come and together as a community take decisions on the niches of the partnership. That's a true DAO, right? And this is a meta layer that will power OpenGov, that hey, all experiments that you want to do as part of an off-chain governance. Once it's finalized, take it to an on-chain governance platform like Polkassembly, where you can finally implement on-chain. So this is the missing layer of OpenGov that we feel was needed, and this is how the complete cycle comes together. So you have Townhall, where you start discussing off-chain. It moves on to Polkassembly, where Polkadot's OpenGov lives, where you have community votes. Money is when and managed via multisigs on Polkasafe, which provides accounting and audit reports, which is displayed on Townhall and Polkassembly, essentially completing your cycle of accountability and traceability. So yeah, I believe everybody here is already participating in OpenGov, either by voting or delegating their votes. If you haven't delegated, head to the dashboard on Polkassembly so you can delegate the same. And these are our links. Sadly, you can't see them, but yeah. Thank you, everyone.